It started with a single thought I never thought I'd have. A thought that could ruin everything. Because the man I couldn't stop thinking about was the one my family swore was off limits. They said his name like a warning. Like danger. Like a door I should never, ever open. But the more they warned me, the more my heart betrayed me. My name is Mariah, and I grew up in a small town where everyone knows everyone, and no mistake stays a secret. It's the kind of place where people pretend they mind their business, but their eyes say otherwise. Rumors don't just spread here, they grow legs, run, and get to your front door before you even realize you've done something worth talking about. Every birthday, every breakup, every argument on the porch, nothing stays private for long. I used to think I was invisible, or at least uninteresting enough to stay out of people's mouths. I followed rules without being asked. I kept my head down. Smiled when I was expected to. Stayed home when other girls snuck out. I lived quietly inside the borders other people drew for me. I've always been the quiet one. The predictable one. The girl who teachers described as sweet and neighbors described as well-behaved. I never gave anyone a reason to question me or worry about me. People liked that about me, my reliability, my softness, my neat little life that fit perfectly into my family's expectations. I didn't challenge anything. I didn't push against anything. I didn't even know how. But everything changed the moment I started noticing him differently. It began slowly, so slowly that I didn't recognize it in myself at first. Little moments, little glances, little sparks of curiosity that I tried to talk myself out of. I would see him across the street and feel this strange tug in my chest. I would hear his name whispered by neighbors and find myself listening harder than I meant to. I would catch myself wondering where he was, what he was thinking, what it would feel like if he ever looked at me the way I secretly hoped he might someday. That shift, soft and dangerous, was the first real crack in the careful person I had been my whole life. It scared me how easily it happened. How naturally. Like my heart had been waiting for a reason to step out of line. Adrian Cole. Even his name felt like a story. The kind spoken in low voices at dinner tables and gas stations. The kind people repeated without ever asking themselves if they actually knew the truth. He was the man with a reputation my father hated, the kind of reputation that wasn't explained but passed down like a warning. A reputation built on shadows, misunderstandings, and one night years ago that people refused to forget. A reputation he never bothered defending himself against, as if he'd accepted that the town needed someone to talk about and he was tired of fighting it. My father couldn't stand him. Not the sight of him. Not the sound of his motorcycle starting in the early mornings. Not the mention of his last name. Anytime Dad saw him, his jaw would tighten, his whole face turning into something hard and closed off. He'd mutter things under his breath, waste of potential, walking trouble, nothing but a problem waiting to happen, as if those words were facts carved in stone. It didn't matter that I'd never seen Adrian do anything bad. In a town like ours, a reputation didn't need evidence, just repetition. And then there was my brother. The history between him and Adrian was one of those open secrets nobody fully explained to me. I only knew what I'd overheard, a fight years ago, fists thrown in the middle of Main Street, my brother shouting, Adrian not backing down, both of them dragged apart by angry men who kept saying someone could have gotten seriously hurt. They'd hated each other ever since. Jace never talked about why. But every time he looked in Adrian's direction, the air between them felt tight, like the memory of that fight was still alive in both of them. All of that, my father's rage, my brother's resentment, the town's whispering, should have been enough to keep me away. It should have made me uninterested. Uncurious. Unaffected. That's who I used to be, after all. The girl who listened. The girl who obeyed. But he lived only 3 houses away. Close enough for me to see him through my bedroom window when he crossed the street. Close enough for me to hear the quiet rumble of his motorcycle in the morning. Close enough for me to notice how he moved, slow, deliberate, like someone who didn't want to take up more space than necessary. Close enough for me to see the way he carried himself, shoulders slightly hunched, hands in his pockets, eyes focused somewhere far away. He kept to himself, always. He didn't linger in crowds. He didn't make small talk at the grocery store. He didn't laugh loudly or draw attention. He moved like a man who had learned to live quietly inside his own walls. A man who didn't expect softness from anyone. A man who didn't ask to be understood. And there was this dark, quiet pain around him, something unspoken that clung to him like a second shadow. Something heavy enough that even from a distance, I could feel it. It made him impossible not to notice. Impossible not to wonder about. Impossible not to feel something for, even when I tried to convince myself I didn't. I wasn't supposed to see him the way I did. But I did. And once it started, I couldn't unsee it. I wasn't supposed to want him. But wanting him became the one thing I couldn't control. It wasn't a gentle kind of wanting either. It didn't arrive politely or knock softly at the edges of my life. It came fast, unexpected, like a sudden summer storm that turns a clear sky dark in minutes. I kept telling myself it was just curiosity, that it would fade, that I'd wake up one morning and laugh at the silly crush I thought I had. But my body betrayed me long before my mind caught up. My heart reacted to him in ways I didn't even understand. My breath changed. My pulse changed. The way I noticed him changed. Every time I told myself to stop, the wanting grew sharper. The situation began one warm summer evening after work. I remember the exact feeling of it, the faint humidity sticking to my skin, the leftover heat rising from the pavement, the soft hum of cicadas hiding in the trees lining our street. I had just closed the bookstore where I worked weekends, the smell of old paper still clinging to my clothes. My hands were dusty from stacking used novels. My hair was messy from rushing around. I wasn't dressed to impress anybody, I wasn't thinking about anything except getting home, showering, and hoping my feet would forgive me for standing so long. The streetlights kept flickering, doing that half-hearted glow our town never bothers fixing. It made the sidewalk look patchy, bright one moment, shadowed the next. I remember adjusting the strap of my bag on my shoulder, lost in my own thoughts, when someone, caught my eye. He was leaning against his motorcycle, parked just beside the corner store, like he belonged to the night more than the town. Like the shadows were drawn toward him and not the other way around. He looked unreal under that fading light. His black shirt clung to him, tracing every line of muscle across his chest and arms. His sleeves were pushed up, revealing tan forearms and veins that stood out just enough to make my stomach tighten. His arms were crossed like he was locking himself in. His jaw was tense, set in a way that made him look like he was wrestling with his own thoughts. His hair fell slightly over his forehead, messy but somehow intentional. He looked like heat and tension had sculpted him. Like he was carved out of the longest, hottest day of the summer. My heart reacted before my mind even realized what it was doing. It didn't ask permission, it just leaped, almost painfully, as if someone had reached into my chest and tightened their grip. My steps slowed. My breath caught. For a moment, it felt like the whole world narrowed to a single point where our paths were about to cross. He wasn't even looking at me at first. He seemed caught up in something distant, something heavier than whatever was happening on our quiet street. But when he finally lifted his head, slowly, almost reluctantly, our eyes met. And something shifted. It didn't feel dramatic or loud. It didn't feel like fireworks or explosions. It felt like a quiet internal click, like something inside me moved into place without warning. My stomach dropped. My breath stilled. And suddenly, I was very aware of everything, the weight of his gaze, the way the air felt different, the way his presence seemed to pull me in and push me away all at once. He studied me for a fraction of a second, his eyes dark but curious, as if he couldn't quite decide whether to look away or keep staring. Then he spoke. "Long day?" he asked, his voice rough but soft. It was the first time I'd ever heard his voice up close. It wasn't deep in an intimidating way, it was deep in a quiet, steady way that felt almost soothing. It sounded like someone who didn't talk much. Someone who only spoke when it mattered. Someone who didn't waste words. Just 2 words, long day? But they hit me like a spark. A small, electric shock right to the center of my chest. I nodded, trying to play it cool even though my pulse was pounding in my ears. Yeah, something like that. My voice came out smaller than I intended. Softer. Like my throat had tightened without warning. I hated that he could do that to me with so little effort. He didn't smile. He didn't frown. But something in his expression softened, just enough to make it feel like he wasn't annoyed that I was there. Just enough to make it feel like he had actually noticed me, really noticed me. He uncrossed his arms and stepped slightly to the side, giving me room to pass on the sidewalk. It was a simple movement, but the awareness of him was overwhelming. The night air felt heavier the closer I got. My skin warmed, my heartbeat quickened, and I swear the few steps it took to reach him felt like the longest walk of my life. When I walked by, the air between us felt charged. As if he was a magnet and I was made of something dangerously reactive. As if the space we shared for that 1 second crackled with something neither of us spoke out loud. It felt dangerous. Not because he'd done anything threatening, but because I felt something I wasn't supposed to feel. Something more intense than curiosity. Something I knew wouldn't fade if I ignored it. Something impossible. Impossible to explain. Impossible to fight. Impossible to forget once it started. And even though nothing else happened that night, everything inside me had already shifted. And I knew that walk past him was the beginning of a want that would break every rule I'd ever lived by. I went home that night trying to convince myself it was nothing. Just a moment. Just nerves. Just my imagination running wild because I had no business feeling what I felt. I paced my room like someone being hunted by her own thoughts. I replayed the way he looked at me, too long, too soft, too aware. I told myself I misread it. I told myself I wanted to misread it. But the next day, I took the long way home. And the day after that. And the day after that. Each time, my heart beat a little faster the closer I got. Each time, I told myself I wasn't looking for him. And each time, I lied. I hated myself for hoping to see him. But I did. I always did. And every time our paths crossed, something inside me shifted. The spark wasn't loud or reckless. It came slowly, like a match burning in silence. Longing glances I pretended not to notice. Awkward half-smiles that said too little, yet somehow too much. That brush of his fingers against mine when we passed each other. So brief it could have been an accident. So electric I knew it wasn't. Every time our eyes met, my chest tightened. Every time he looked away first, something in me pulled painfully toward him. Like I'd been waiting for a moment I wasn't allowed to have. Then one evening, as the clouds hung low and the wind tasted like rain, I saw him behind the old church. He was sitting on the stone steps, elbows on his knees, hands loosely clasped, head bowed like he was praying for something he didn't believe he deserved. The sight of him hit me harder than it should have. He looked tired, not physically, but soul tired. The kind you can't sleep your way out of. I should have kept walking. I should have protected myself. Protected him. Protected everything we weren't supposed to feel. But my feet betrayed me before my mind had time to argue. I walked toward him. "You okay?" I whispered, almost afraid to break the quiet. He didn't look at me at first. He just let out a breath, slow, shaky, heavy. "Some days are heavier than others," he finally said, voice rough like he'd been holding it in for hours. I sat beside him, close but careful. As if the wrong inch could set off something we couldn't undo. "What are you carrying?" I asked softly. He swallowed hard. His jaw tightened. His fingers curled like he was gripping invisible ropes. Then, with his eyes fixed on the ground, he whispered, wanting something I shouldn't want. My heart tripped, actually stuttered. Because I knew. I knew exactly what he meant. And the truth was terrifying. Because I wanted it too. The complication was everything around us, everything I had grown up knowing was suddenly pulling me in a million different directions. My family, with their sharp eyes and even sharper rules, seemed like an invisible wall I was not meant to cross. Every glance from my father carried judgment, every passing word from my mother weighed on me with expectation. Their warnings about Adrian weren't just empty phrases, they were a part of the fabric of my life, stitched into my childhood so deeply that ignoring them felt like tearing a piece of myself away. And yet, I couldn't. Then there was Adrian himself. He wasn't reckless or loud, but I could sense the weight of something inside him, a hesitation, a caution, like he was always measuring the distance between us, trying to protect me as much as himself. His reputation, though whispered about in the corners of our town, was like a shadow he couldn't shake. People said things about him, things that painted him as dangerous, untrustworthy, untouchable. And in the small town we lived in, where every word travels faster than the wind, that reputation carried weight. And then there were old grudges, things I didn't even fully understand, scars left from fights my brother and he had had years ago, and rumors that had lingered so long they had become part of the story everyone repeated. None of it made sense to me. None of it felt fair. But it was all real. And it stood between us like a wall I didn't know if I could scale. Adrian kept trying to keep his distance, like he was wrestling with something inside him. I could see it in the way he walked a few steps ahead when we met on the street, in the way his eyes darted away when our hands brushed by accident, in the way he seemed tense even in moments that should have felt light. He wanted to stay away. I wanted to stay away, too, or at least, I tried. But the truth was that every attempt at distance made the longing stronger. But the deepening came anyway, sneaking into our lives when we least expected it. Quiet conversations that stretched for hours, long after the streetlights flickered on and the town had gone to bed. Late-night moments where the air between us felt too electric to ignore, like the world had shrunk down to the two of us and no one else existed. Shared secrets that made my chest pound with exhilaration and fear at the same time. And the way he looked at me, like he was measuring me, like he could see into places I had never shown anyone, was enough to make my whole body tremble. It was both terrifying and intoxicating. I kept asking myself questions I didn't have answers for. Why am I like this? Why him? Why now? Every night, in the quiet of my room, I lay awake and repeated these questions over and over, trying to convince myself that it was impossible, that it was wrong, that I should stop feeling what I felt. But my heart refused to listen. It beat in defiance of reason. It reminded me with every thump that wanting him was no longer a choice I could make rationally. And then came the twist. One evening, after a day that had been unusually heavy with tension, I walked toward my front door, thinking about Adrian the way I always did, about his quiet voice, the way his eyes lingered too long, the way he made me feel seen when no one else ever had. I didn't notice the shadow on the porch until I was almost there, until my own steps faltered in sudden dread. My brother, Jace, was pacing. His movements were sharp and rigid, his fists clenching and unclenching as he stared at his phone. The red flush of anger painted his face, making his features hard, unyielding. There was no mistaking it, he had seen something. He had found something. My chest sank. He didn't even wait for me to say hello. He shoved the phone in my face like it was a weapon. My eyes fell on the screen, and I froze. A photo. A grainy, blurred picture of me and Adrian behind the church. Standing too close. Looking too comfortable. Looking like we belonged in that moment together. I felt my stomach drop straight out of my chest. My hands trembled. My voice caught in my throat, thick and unsteady. Jace, it's not. He cut me off, sharp and unrelenting. Explain, he snapped, his voice louder than I expected. Tell me it's not what it looks like. I opened my mouth, closed it, tried again. My voice shook, fragile against his anger. Jace, it's not what you think. But he wasn't listening. He never even gave me the chance to finish. His eyes, wide and blazing, didn't soften, didn't waver. You are not seeing him again. I mean it, he said, each word a hammer against my chest. I felt the walls of my world shift. The air itself seemed heavier. My own room felt farther away than it ever had, the path I had walked 1,000 times suddenly unfamiliar. His words weren't just a warning, they were a judgment, a line drawn in concrete that I wasn't allowed to cross. And yet, despite the fear curling in my stomach, despite the guilt that pressed against my ribs, I couldn't stop the flutter in my chest. That flutter that had been there every time our eyes met, every time his hand brushed mine, every time the world fell silent around us. In that moment, I realized how fragile everything we had built in stolen glances, quiet conversations, and unspoken understanding really was. One picture. One misunderstanding. One grainy moment captured without context had shattered the fragile bubble we had been hiding in. And I stood there, rooted to the spot, trying to think, trying to breathe, trying to find the words that would make him understand. But I didn't know if there were any words left that could. Something inside me broke. It wasn't sudden, like a snapped bone. It was slow and relentless, a quiet shattering that started deep in my chest and spread outward until it consumed everything. The fear. The humiliation. The impossible choice I knew was coming, the one I had been dreading the moment I realized how much I wanted him. I felt a twist in my stomach, knot and unravel, making my limbs feel both heavy and weightless at the same time, like gravity itself had decided I didn't deserve to stand still. I didn't stop to think. I didn't wait to measure the consequences. I ran. My feet barely touched the ground, pounding against the cracked sidewalk, echoing in the still night air. The street was empty, the only sound my own ragged breathing and the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. My heart was hammering so loud, I was sure he could hear it even from blocks away. Every step felt desperate, urgent, a physical manifestation of the storm raging inside me. I knew I had to see him. Had to. The world could fall apart around me, and I wouldn't care. Straight to the only place I knew he'd be. The garage. His sanctuary. The place where the scent of oil, leather, and metal clung to every corner. The place where he went to be alone, to think, to untangle his own complicated thoughts. The dim light from a single overhead bulb cast long, flickering shadows on the walls. The motorcycle gleamed under the dull light, black and polished, reflecting parts of him even when he wasn't looking. And there he was. Adrian. He was wiping down the bike like he was trying to scrub thoughts out of his mind, like he could erase memories and regrets with nothing but a rag and oil. He didn't notice me at first. He was completely absorbed, focused in that way that made him impossible not to watch. And then, finally, he looked up. When his eyes met mine, he froze. His whole body stiffened, the rag slipping from his hands, the muscles in his shoulders coiling like a spring ready to snap. I felt it before I even spoke, tension radiating off him like heat from the asphalt in the summer. I could almost hear the words his body didn't say. Stay. Go. Don't. Please. They know, I choked out. The words were jagged, broken by breath I didn't even know I was holding. The confession hung in the air between us, heavy and sharp, like glass pressed against skin. His entire body tensed, rigid as a statue carved from something brittle and restrained. His eyes darted to the floor, then back to mine, and I could see the conflict flickering there, the protective instincts, the fear, the impossible knowledge of how dangerous our feelings were. Mariah, you shouldn't be here, he said, low, deliberate, as though each word had to fight its way past the tight cord of emotion strangling his chest. I stepped closer. Just a single step. Then another. Every movement felt monumental, like crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I wasn't sure if I was braver than I should be, or foolish. Maybe both. So you're choosing their fear over this? I whispered, voice trembling. The word this hung in the air like it had weight, like it contained everything I'd ever wanted and everything I'd ever been told I couldn't have. He closed his eyes, and the motion was like a punch. The way he pressed his palms lightly against his forehead, as if the question physically hurt him, made my chest ache in sympathy. He took a slow, deep breath, like he was trying to suck the air out of a room that didn't exist. I'm choosing what keeps you safe. You don't get what being with me will cost you, he said, voice strained, barely audible, like he was confessing something private that the world would never understand. My heart cracked right down the middle. The sound was silent but deafening inside me. I could feel it splintering in pieces I didn't know existed, breaking in places I didn't know could break. Don't I get to decide that? I demanded, my voice shaking, my throat tight, tears threatening to fall. I wasn't asking for permission. I was asserting something I hadn't allowed myself to feel until now. My chest felt as though it had been hollow and someone had finally filled it with fire, with longing, with raw, undeniable need. He whispered, voice breaking this time, almost collapsing under its own weight, I won't be the reason you lose your family. It hit me like a tidal wave. The gentleness of it, the restraint, the pain behind the words, they were everything I feared and everything I loved about him all at once. I wanted to scream, to shout that I didn't care about the consequences, that I would face anything for him. I wanted to wrap my hands around his shoulders, look into his eyes, and tell him he didn't get to decide my heart. And then he did the one thing I never expected, he walked away from me. The motion was deliberate. Not angry. Not cruel. But deliberate. He turned his back, each step deliberate, slow, measured. His boots echoed on the concrete floor, and each echo sounded like my own heart breaking in tandem. I stood frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe, watching him disappear into the shadows of the garage. And in that moment, I realized how impossible it all was. How much I wanted him and how much I couldn't have him at the same time. How fragile our stolen moments were. How every choice, every glance, every whispered word could undo everything in an instant. My chest ached. My stomach twisted. My hands felt empty, as though he had taken pieces of me with him as he walked away. I wanted to call after him, to beg him to stay, to fight for whatever it was that existed between us, but my voice refused to obey. It had been caught somewhere between fear and desperation and longing that had no name. All I could do was stand there and watch him walk away. And somehow, even in the heartbreak, even in the impossibility of it, I knew one thing, nothing about what I felt for him was going to fade, not now, not ever. That night, it felt like everything collapsed. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't a sharp crack that could be ignored. It was slow, relentless, like the walls of my world had been quietly unbolted and pushed inward while I slept. The pain was sharp. Raw. It settled in my chest, twisted in my stomach, and spread to my fingertips as if I could feel it physically, as if my body itself had learned what heartbreak truly meant. The echoes of that night followed me into every corner of my room, the shadows in the corners seemed heavier, the floorboards groaned in sympathy, the air felt too thick, pressing against my lungs with every breath I took. For the first time, I realized how much I had been living for everyone else, my father, my brother, my town, even the rules I had carved into myself to feel safe. Every thought, every decision, every fleeting moment of desire had been measured against their expectations, their fears, their judgments. And now that I had tasted the sharp reality of wanting something forbidden, something that made my heart pound and my pulse race, I knew I couldn't go back to living that way. The days that followed were strange and painful, like walking through fog. I stumbled, I hesitated, I second-guessed every choice. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, I began to learn something important. I couldn't keep living for everyone else's fears. I couldn't let their judgments dictate my heart. I had to decide for myself. I started speaking up. Small things at first. Small victories. Correcting misperceptions, defending myself when someone questioned my decisions, asserting boundaries that had once felt impossible. Each word I spoke, each boundary I set, felt like a small reclaiming of my own life. And slowly, painfully, I grew stronger. Not confident in a loud, boastful way, but quietly, firmly. The kind of strength that roots itself in your bones and refuses to be shaken. Weeks passed. The air shifted with summer slowly bending toward fall. I could feel the weight of anticipation building inside me, a tension I could no longer ignore. And then, one evening, as the sun dipped low and the streetlights flickered to life, I saw him. Adrian. Sitting on his front steps. He looked smaller somehow, hunched over like a man carrying his own heartbreak on his shoulders. The porch light cast a soft, forgiving glow over him, highlighting the tense lines of his shoulders, the way his hands rested on his knees, the slight slump of his head. He looked lost. And the sight of him like that made my heart tighten in ways I couldn't name. I had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but never with him looking so fragile, so human, so in need of something he didn't allow himself to ask for. I walked toward him, my footsteps soft but deliberate on the sidewalk. Every fiber of my body was alive, every heartbeat loud enough that I thought he might feel it, hear it, know it. And when he looked up, when his eyes widened as he recognized me, the air between us shifted. Mariah? His voice cracked slightly, tentative, as though he hadn't allowed himself to believe this moment could happen. I stopped a few feet away, heart racing but steady now, grounded in the certainty I had been building inside me for weeks. I met his gaze and held it, letting the tension between us stretch until it throbbed with meaning. "You don't get to decide that I'm better off without you," I said quietly but firmly. "I know what I'm choosing." His breath caught. I saw it in the way his chest rose sharply, the way his hands twitched, the way his jaw clenched and unclenched. He wanted to speak, but his voice faltered. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, almost pleading, his eyes searching mine like he was afraid the answer might shatter everything. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat almost too heavy to bear. "Because I've never been this sure of anything in my life," I said, letting the words sink between us like stones in a still pond. For a moment, he exhaled as if he had been suffocating for weeks. The air seemed to move with him, the world holding its breath while he processed what I had just said. He slowly stood, hesitating like the movement itself was an act of courage. He reached for me, then stopped mid-step, like he was weighing whether he deserved to touch me, whether he had the right to claim even a single inch of this moment after everything we had endured. I didn't wait for him. I closed the distance myself, stepping into the space that had felt impossible for so long. Our foreheads met, and in that instant, the tension, the longing, the months of fear and restraint, seemed to release all at once. His breath was warm against my skin. His eyes were closed, his expression soft but taut with emotion. "You have no idea how much I tried to stay away," he whispered, voice breaking, words uneven, almost desperate. "Then stop trying," I breathed back, letting the words carry everything I had held inside, the longing, the fear, the heartbreak, the certainty. For a long, suspended moment, we simply stayed there, foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling, hearts hammering in unison. The world around us blurred, the streetlights, the quiet houses, the distant hum of tires on pavement, all of it fading until it was just the two of us, finally allowing ourselves to be what we had been denying for so long. That was our reunion. Quiet. Soft. Gentle, almost fragile. But beneath it, fierce in its truth. Two hearts choosing each other. Despite the fear. Despite the judgment. Despite everything that had tried to keep us apart. And in that stillness, I realized that sometimes love wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Sometimes, it was about showing up. Choosing. Standing firm in the certainty that nothing outside mattered more than what your heart already knew. My family didn't magically approve. There wasn't a single moment when my father's glare softened, when my mother's sigh turned into acceptance, when my brother's eyes stopped carrying the weight of anger and worry. The conversations I had imagined in my head, about forgiveness, understanding, or cautious approval, never came. Instead, there were cold silences, pointed questions, and the unspoken reminders that I was stepping into territory I wasn't supposed to. The town didn't suddenly forget the rumors. People still whispered. Heads still turned when we walked by. The small-town eyes that had once ignored me now seemed like they were studying me, cataloging every choice, every glance, every heartbeat. I could feel it, the curiosity, the judgment, the fascination, all of it pressing in like a tangible weight. And even though I wanted to ignore it, even though I tried to bury it beneath the certainty I had fought so hard to find, it lingered. Rumors are like shadows in a town like ours. They stretch long and stubborn, refusing to disappear just because you've chosen a different path. And Adrian didn't become some perfect hero. He didn't suddenly have all the answers, or a flawless plan to make everything okay. He didn't stop being complicated, brooding, or carrying the burdens that had made him seem so untouchable for so long. He wasn't flawless, and he wasn't easy, but that's exactly why I loved him. The perfection I had once imagined in fairy tales and romance novels was irrelevant here. What mattered was the realness. The honesty. The vulnerability that he allowed only when he trusted me enough to let his walls down, even for a moment. But loving him taught me something priceless. Something that no lesson, no lecture, no whispered warning could ever have given me. It taught me that fear is loud. Fear shouts. It rattles the walls. It screams in your ears with warnings, with doubts, with voices that try to make you small, cautious, invisible. Fear tells you to stay safe, to follow the rules, to hide your heart behind walls of reason. Fear tells you that love like this, deep, intense, forbidden, is too dangerous to touch. But the heart is louder. The heart whispers. Sometimes it shouts, too, but always with a clarity that cuts through the noise of fear. The heart doesn't care about rules or judgment or old grudges. The heart simply knows. And when your heart recognizes something that makes you feel alive in every nerve and every bone, it will pull you forward, even when everything else tells you to stop. And I would rather walk into the unknown with someone who saw me, truly saw me. Someone who looked at me and understood the things I didn't even say out loud. Someone who caught the glances, the tremors, the silent words my body spoke but my mouth couldn't. I would rather step into the uncertainty, the risk, the potential heartbreak, with someone like that at my side, than live safely inside a life that wasn't mine. A life constructed of rules and expectations and fear, where my own desires had no voice and my own heart had no choice. Adrian made the unknown feel worth it. Every touch, every look, every stolen smile carried a promise, not of perfection, but of honesty, of presence, of shared courage. With him, I learned that love isn't about safety. It isn't about fitting into what everyone else thinks is acceptable. It's about connection. About recognition. About choosing someone, even when it terrifies you, even when the world is against you, because your soul refuses to settle for anything less. So now I want to ask you. Because this isn't just my story. It's a question I think everyone has to face at some point. A moment where the heart and the world collide, and you're forced to decide whether you'll listen to fear, or to yourself. If your heart wanted someone everyone told you to avoid, would you listen to them? Would you follow the rules, stay in the lines, hide the flutter in your chest, and obey the voices telling you that it's too dangerous? Or would you take the risk? Would you step forward, even if your legs shake, even if your voice trembles, even if the world seems ready to judge, betray, or misunderstand? Would you choose the person your soul keeps running toward, the one who sees you, the one who challenges you, the one who makes your heart feel like it's both breaking and coming alive at the same time? Because that is what love sometimes asks of us. Not perfection. Not safety. Not approval. Just honesty. Just courage. Just the willingness to face the fear, whatever it may be, and decide that what your heart knows is worth the risk. So, what about you? Would you listen to the warnings, or would you follow the pull of your heart? I want to know. I really do. If you enjoyed this story, if you felt the tension, the longing, the fear, the heartbreak, and the quiet triumph of choosing love anyway, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a story like this. Like this video if it made your heart race. Comment below, tell me what you would do if your heart wanted someone everyone warned you about. Share it with someone who needs to hear that sometimes, following your heart is the bravest choice you'll ever make. Because stories like this aren't just about love, they're about courage, about choice, and about the unshakable truth that the heart is always louder than fear.